First thing I'm going to go through is I'm just going to click on an account here. And accounts, keep in mind, these are Salesforce accounts. It's the same object, but we've just added some additional fields and some related objects to the account object. If I come in here and just click on details, you'll see we have a section of just GoldFinch ERP fields that are used, can be used, may or may not be used, depending on the situation, but it has sales tax, payment terms, basic setups for the account. We also have, if I click under related lists, there are a few related objects that we've added. One is alternate shipping. And this is so that if you have customers that have multiple shipping addresses, you can enter the alternate shipping tier. This will be able to be pulled onto a sales order. So you can see in the main details, there's one address, right? We can have a billing address and one shipping address here. So here we have it going to Burlington, North Carolina. But we can have additional alternate shipping addresses. Here I could select Wilmington, just named it Wilmington. That seems to make the most sense if it's the city. And we have the address of where those goods are going to. And there's also additional information that you can link to this alternate shipping address, like a sales tax. If there's a different warehouse that this item usually ships out of, depending on where the goods are going. We also have different shipping information. If there's a default shipping agent, if maybe going to this address, it usually goes to FedEx, where others it might go via UPS. You can have all of that default information based on the alternate shipping address. So I'll come back here, and they're limited. You can have as many as you need per customer. And what we also have here, we have in the related list, we have sales orders that you can see, anything related to this account, sales invoices that have been processed. We also have here warehouse shipments, anything that's been processed for this particular customer. And then we also have customer ledger entries. I'm going to open this up. Anytime any transaction is posted to a particular account, a customer ledger entry is created. So you can see here by the document type, we have multiple invoices that were posted. We have a payment that was received in, a credit memo that was posted here. And it's going to tell us what the original amount is and what the remaining amount is of these particular documents. And the remaining amount is what's open and what's closed. So if there's an outstanding invoice like we have here, once that's been paid, the remaining amount will go down to zero as payments happen and are applied to that invoice. And that is something that we're going to go through later today, just kind of how the receipts happens. But the customer ledger entries is a very important part of the customer account because this is where a lot of your reporting comes from. So I'm just going to go back to the main account. I can select here this customer AR aging. So based off of the customer ledger entries, we can run a customer aging. And this is just for this one particular customer. And I can show it in PDF. I can email it to a customer. I can export it to Excel. But I'm just going to show it in a PDF document here. And it's just your basic standard AR aging. This is for one customer. You can also do it for multiple customers at one time. But it's your basic setup, what document type it is, what's the balance, and it's going to bucket into 30-day increments. Along with that aging report, we also have this customer activity statement, which basically is taking your customer ledger entries, and I'm going to view it as a PDF here as well. And it's going to take your ledger entries and it's going to kind of give you a running balance. So these are all of the transactions, and you can, select your specific date range that you want to look for, so that you can see all of the transactions and kind of see how everything's occurred. And this you can send off to your customer. So that's really what I wanted to go through on the account, just a couple additional things that were added. When you go through the sales process, we do have a couple other objects that you can set up. We have sales prices and we also have sales discounts. I'm going to open up the sales prices, just have one in here. There are many options of how you set up a sales price. So I'm just going to come in here and I'll click on edit here. It's a little bit easier to see. You can enter a specific account. If you have specific sales prices per account, you can enter that information. You can enter it by item and unit of measure, so you can select what the actual sales price is for the item. a date range that you can enter in here. You can select pricing types, which this is a way to group accounts. So you can have it for one specific account, or you can use it for a pricing group, which is kind of a way to group different accounts. And then what the actual price is. We can also use this sales price setup for a minimum quantity. So if you're doing quantity pricing, you can enter the minimum quantity. So here, this setup is saying that we don't have any accounts defined. So for any account who purchases this one item, if they purchase at least 10, the item price is going to be $23.50. So when an order is placed through this year, right, because it's for the entire year of 2024, if any customer purchases this item and orders at least 10, the unit price from the item is no longer going to be utilized. It's going to come here and use this updated sales price. It's not going to be seen as a discount. It's just going to be, this is the sales price that's going to be posted, and that's the amount that's going to be posted to the revenue when the order is completed. All right, so like I said, I have here this one sales price. There are a lot of different options. You can have different date ranges, so you can keep your history. That's really why we have our date ranges, so you don't have to go in and change an existing record. You can have additional records, maybe. So for next year, if you already know the pricing, you can enter the record in here for next year, and it won't be active or utilized until the starting date hits, which will be January of next year for the new pricing. All right, so we have the sales prices, and then we also have sales discounts, which this is treated a little bit differently. I'm going to click in here and go to the sales discounts. I have here one discount set up. Just going to open this here so we can look at it. This is for this one account, this Burlington Textiles. So this is only going to be utilized for that one customer. We can define specific items and units of measure, but we can enter in a discount percentage. So I have starting from January of 2024 through, was that July of 2024, right, all the way through that month, this customer is going to get 10% off any item that they purchase. You can get more, specific and put in different items, select items, or item categories, which is kind of groupings of items so that a specific group they can get a discount for. But for this particular setup, this customer is going to get a 10% discount for the majority of this year. So now what I'm going to put in a sales order, and you can actually see now how those pricing and discounts are going to come into play. We do have an option to enter sales quotes. I'm not going to do that today. You can enter a sales quote and make it into a sales order. Most of our clients go directly to sales orders. So that's what I'm going to do here, and it just has more information. So as I come onto my sales orders, we are always going to keep the sales orders after they've been completed. They never get deleted. They're always going to be able to stay in the system. And you can see here you have a document status. So as we're working through the sales order and we're shipping goods out and we're creating invoices, the document status is going to be updated, so you know where that sales order is in the process. So I'm going to click on new, and I'm just going to create a new sales order, and I'm going to create it for that Burlington Textile that we saw in the setup of the pricing, I think it was. So as soon as we enter the customer, all the default information that was entered on the account is automatically going to populate here. We have our billing address, the payment terms, and I'm going to leave this here. This is 2%, 10, net 30. So it's going to give an early payment discount is going to be associated with this invoice if they choose to take that. The basic address information, right? The billing address is here. Or I'm sorry, I skipped over this. Shipping information. If they want to define how they want to ship by shipping agent, you can select it here. Whatever the shipping service is, how they're going to be shipping the order. We have the address here. Here's the billing address. And here we have the alternate shipping. So if it's not going to the billing address, I can select one of those alternate shipping addresses that we had set up before. So I can select that, and it just populates with the information. Couple other tabs here, return order. If it is a return order, we would check off that it is indeed a return order here. If this is coming in through EDI, if it's an EDI transaction, we have some fields here that will work with that if it comes in through EDI and kind of sends the information back and forth, keeps track of that there. And then we just have a main description field. If you'd like, this is just free text, you can enter that information here. But I'm going to go back to the general tab here. There are a couple of fields I skipped over that can be important. Customer PO number. This, you can manually enter the customer's PO number. This just follows the order and is printed on documents. So for the customer's reference, they'll have their PO number on any document. By default, we have what warehouse the orders are going to be shipped out of. This is by default. You can have shipments on one order coming out of multiple warehouses. We're not going to be doing that here. We're just going to be setting everything up just to this one main warehouse. All right, and we have a couple of, this is another text field that you can just enter an order note. We do have a function that can put sales orders on hold. So if, for example, they're going to reach their credit limit, or manually, you can come in here and say that you want to put a sales order on hold. You can do that here. If this is checked off, you're not going to be able to create any shipments until the hold is taken off of the sales order. We also have this field here, do not allocate. I'm going to leave that unchecked because I want the system to automatically allocate inventory. What allocations is when you enter an item onto a sales order, the system will look through and see if you have any inventory on hand that will be allocated to that specific sales order. So it's kind of holding your inventory. So when you look at inventory transactions, you may say that we have a total of 10 on hand, but 2 of these items have been allocated to a sales order. So really you only have a quantity of 8 that's available. So it gives us the actual availability so that you don't oversell. So it kind of keeps track of how much you have really to sell based on the sales orders that are already in the system. So what I'm going to do now is I'm just going to click on add lines and I'm going to enter my item numbers. And I'll enter the quantity. I can select the unit of measure if I want to sell it in eaches or if I want to sell it in cases. I'm going to sell it in eaches. And I'm going to enter a quantity of 1. Now you can see here what happens. The unit price is $25. And because this customer, this Burlington Textile, is set up with a 10% discount for every item, I'm getting a 10% discount on this item. So automatically it's going to be discounted $2.50. So that here's my total amount is $22.50 for this item. Now, if I want to purchase 10 of this item, keep in mind this is the item that was set up with an additional sales price. So a sales price for every customer for this item, if I order at least 10, I'm going to get a discounted unit price. So if I enter a quantity of 10, the unit price automatically changes from $25 to $23.50. And then you can see my discount is still taken. And so then the discount is calculated off of that unit price. And now my total line amount for this item is $211.50. If you need to change this, if you notice, you know what, that's not actually the right price, I'm going to give them a discount myself. You can enter in a new unit price. You can also enter in your own discount if you'd like. And that will be held just for this sales order. It's not going to update any other information. It's only sales order by sales order. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to enter another item in here, just so we have 2 items that we're looking at. Okay, and my price comes in. The discount, again, I'm also getting a 10% discount because I'm getting a 10% discount on every item purchased. And you would just continue to enter your items in. You can see here the line amount is always going to be calculating. And then you have a total here that's just going to be running total as you enter your items in. Your total is going to continue to calculate. So now that I have my items entered, my next step is to save this sales order. And because I have do not allocate unchecked, which means it'll automatically allocate the inventory for me as soon as I save the sales order. So I'm going to click on save, and it goes through and it will update all the information, give me a sales order, and then also it will allocate any items that it has on hand available for me to allocate to this particular sales order. So here's the sales orders that's been completed. Under the related, here are the items that you can see. And then I do have item allocation records were created. So here, for these two items, item allocation records were created, and a total of 10 was allocated for this first item, which is good. They ordered 10. But we only have 5 allocated for the second item, even though we ordered 7. That's because there's only 5 available for this item to be shipped out. So it's only going to be allocating what it has on hand. When a shipment's created, it's going to look and see what's been allocated to this particular sales order, and that's all that the shipment is going to be allowed to ship out, is just what's been allocated. So this happens automatically, so you can see here the lines. And if I click on, edit. If I edit the order again, there's an allocated quantity field here. And you can see it's green because the entire quantity of this item has been allocated. And here we have it's yellow because a portion of this quantity that's been ordered has been allocated. If none has been allocated, it would show red. So it just has different colors here so you can quickly glance and see what the allocation status is for each item. If I come out of here, there's also an allocation status here, right on the header of the sales order. And the allocation status here is partial, right? It would be full, partial, or none. Those are the different allocation statuses. So since we have some of the items have been allocated, ready to be shipped out, we do have the status of partial. So once we have the sales order entered in here, I can print out an order confirmation, just a basic standard form here that can PDF form that can be updated and changed by you. Okay, so here by default, it's just listing out your items. It's going to list out your standard unit price, whatever the unit price is, the discount, and it's just going to give you a grand total here. Just a basic layout that you can send to your customer. You can email it, print it, and send it to them however you want to get the information to them. So now that we have our sales order here, it's been allocated or partially allocated. The next step in the process is to create a warehouse shipment. And this is going to, again, it's going to take all the information from the sales order and all of the items that have been allocated on the sales order. So I'm going to click on Create Shipment. Here we are. All right. So now it has all of our information, has our items that are entered in here. And you can see here the quantities of, we have 10 of the first item and only 5 of the second item because that's all that was allocated. What you can do is you can come in here and you can edit the warehouse shipment if anything changes. If, for example, you don't want to ship out the full quantity of 10, you can change the quantity. If you don't want to ship out this item at all, you can simply delete it from the warehouse shipment. And as you do this, it'll just kind of update as you go and post through. It'll update the sales order. So the sales order will be seen as a back order, just because we have this information here. Now, this particular org is set up to use pick tickets to pick the goods because we have multiple bins. So in a more simplistic, if you are not using multiple bins, you can come in here, create the warehouse shipment, and then post it because everything's coming in and out of one bin. But because in this system we have multiple bins, we have to create a pick ticket. And what the pick ticket is going to do, it's going to go and look and see where the items are and pull from those particular bins. So I'm going to click on Create Pick Ticket, and these are the items. It's just going to show me, and I'll say Create Pick Ticket. All right, now what's happened on this pick ticket is because I have set up done to automatically assign the lot number and to automatically assign the bin, what happens is the system goes through and looks, it's based on FIFO for those lot tracked items and FIFO for non-lot tracked items. It will come in and select what the from bin is and the to bin. So we need to move all of this to our shipping bin, which we call our pick bin. And the system's going to come in here and say, this is the bins that the item is in now. So we're going to move the inventory from one bin to the shipping bin. First item is a lot number. It assigns that lot number. It's automatically assigned, based on that FIFO method. And so we're pulling from bin to bin. All right. And if we want, we can edit this pick ticket if you'd like, and you can say, you know what, I don't want to pull from that bin, I want to pull from a different bin. You can select here, or if I want to select a different lot, you do have the option to manually enter information here, or you can just have the system automatically do it. So I'll just cancel out of here. I'm not going to make any changes. From the pick ticket, we do have a document called print instructions for instructions. So this is, you can give to your warehouse employees and say, here are the items that we need to pick. Here's where we're going. You're going to get the bins from and the quantities. So you can pick all of these items. All right. But once we have all of this information, then what I'm going to do is I'm going to post this picking document. All right. And posting the picking document, what this is going to do, this is going to move goods from one bin to another bin. So you can see from the pick tick document, we have warehouse entries that were created. So these warehouse entries are just moving these items from one bin to another bin. There aren't any item ledger entries created from a pick ticket. It's only warehouse entries because it's only an internal transaction, right? It's just going from bin to bin. We're not changing the total quantity on hand, and we're not changing anything with the costing of the items. It's just the movement. So we can see what's actually occurred here. All right, so once we have this pick ticket, all the goods are now in the appropriate bin. I'm going to go back to the warehouse shipment. The shipment has the document status that the pick is created. We have here, you can see the enter lots is green. If I click on here, because we did the pick ticket, the lot number is automatically transferred over to the warehouse shipment. So that's the lot number that we've picked. And this warehouse shipment now is ready to be posted. So once the goods really go out the door, we can actually change the actual shipment date of when the goods are happening. And then we can post this warehouse shipment, and that's actually going to be leave inventory. Okay. One thing I forgot to do here is we do have a packing slip, which you can print before or after. But here, this is going to just show you the total items, lot number, quantity that's been shipping out. We do have weight assigned here to the different units of measure for the different items. So it'll just total up the weight, and just your basic standard packing slip that can be printed. So that can be printed before you post the warehouse shipment, or you can post it and print it after the fact if you need to, depending on the situation. But once you post the warehouse shipment, I'm going to go into the ledger entries here so we can see what's occurred. I'm going to look at the warehouse entries, and you can see here the activity type. These pick ticket items, activities, are still related to the warehouse shipment. So you can see this is what's happened before, right, when we move the inventory from one bin to another. But then we also just posted shipment documents. So this is relieving the inventory. So now we're reducing the inventory in this one, in this pick bin for both of the items. So we have warehouse entries that are created. We also have item ledger entries. And remember, the item ledger entry is really the main hub of what actually is going to be showing on your quantity for your items. And then we have the warehouse entries, which kind of shows the bins, what happened within the warehouse, within the different bins. So we can see here that we have our item ledger entries created, shipment documents to reduce the inventory. And we also have a unit cost associated here. This is the cost for the inventory item that was on hand. And this is coming from cost entries. You can see cost entries as well. So here's the expected cost, because remember what happens when you ship goods out, you're not actually hitting your general ledger yet. You just kind of have an expected cost of goods that have been shipped out. And it's not until we actually process the invoice, just like on the purchase side, on the sales side, when we process the invoice, that's when the general ledger is going to be affected with the cost of goods sold and the revenue. And all of that will be hit when the invoice is posted. But these cost entries are created because we did adjust the quantity of the inventory, and this is the cost that's been adjusted. So you do change your value. Then from here, the next step we're going to do is create the invoice, right? We've shipped the goods out. Now we're going to create an invoice to send to the customer. So what I've done is from the warehouse shipment, I've created a sales invoice. This is pulling all of the information. I'm just going to click on edit here so we can see. It's just going to pull all of the information of what we've shipped out. There are some things that we can change here. The customer PO number, again, flows through. We're always going to have that. If you need to change the payment terms, you can. Basic billing address, anything that needs to be changed can be changed here. You have here your sales invoices lines. So here are the items that shipped out. We have unit prices. If you want to change the price here before it actually goes out to the customer, you can. And what you can also do here is add additional lines. So I'm going to click on add lines here. I can add either a service item or a general ledger account number directly if I have any additional fees. And I do have a service item that I'm going to add here. I'm going to add shipping fees. So these are just shipping fees that I'm going to add. That's going to update and change the total amount of the order or of the invoice. Sorry. So we are going to add whatever fees we want. And then once I have everything here, all my pricing is set up, I'm going to save the sales order, or I'm sorry, the sales invoice. And then you can see here on the header, if I come down here, we have some total information. Here's the total amount of the invoice, the total quantities, and it also gives me the total cost for all those items, and then the profit. So it will give me a calculated profit so that you can see this on the sales invoices and then, of course, report off of that to get the profit per invoice. All right, now what I'm going to do is I'm going to post this invoice. Now, as I post, this is when the general ledger is actually going to be hit, when I post this invoice. So I'm going to look at the general ledger entries that have been affected. We have our accounts receivable for the total amount. You can also see here the revenue for your items, and we also have a discount because this was that discount amount that was the 10% discount. Have it posting to its own specific revenue discount account. We have the total cost of goods sold that's going to be posting, and here is the reduction to the finished goods and raw materials. There were different kinds of items, and then here's that $25 shipping charge that I added at the end. So this is where you're going to see all of the general ledger account numbers that have been affected when that invoice has been posted. All right, so I'm going to go back. Here I have my sales invoice. I'm going to go back to the sales order so we can see what the status of the sales order is now. We have the document status is back ordered because we didn't ship all of the items out. The allocation status is none. Nothing's been allocated. But you can see here we have the warehouse shipment linked. We have the sales invoice linked here, all the information. Whenever the item comes back into stock and we can allocate, then we can create another warehouse shipment right from the sales order. So we'll have multiple warehouse shipments linked to the sales order. A couple other things, if I look at the sales line for this item that didn't ship out, I can see that I have my total quantity ordered, the total quantity shipped, which was 5, and then I have an outstanding quantity of 2. So here we can utilize this to report to see what's actually outstanding on your sales line. So as goods ship out, this is automatically going to be calculated. So we can wait here for the sales order and for this item to come in and then ship the sales order. But if the customer at this time calls and says, you know what, I don't even need that extra quantity of 2, don't even ship me the order, there's an option here where you can close the sales order. There is a field here that's called closed. That's just going to be checked off. And on the sales lines, it's going to be marked off as closed as well. So if I just click on close, it kind of goes through and it checks off that now this sales order is closed. And the sales line, same thing. There's a closed field on the sales line. The document status has been updated from back ordered to now completed. So when you do your reporting, you won't be seeing the sales order as an open back order because it's closed out. And when you do your demand planning, the sales order is not going to be taken into account because we've closed the sales order and this is no longer a demand for this back ordered item. So we've closed this sales order. The sales order is now done. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to create another sales order and I'm going to use the same customer. And I'm going to enter an item here, this 7,000-1. And I'm going to enter a quantity of 5. Again, pricing comes in, the discount comes in. Now I'm just going to save this sales order. And now the allocation status is none. This item, we don't have any of this item on hand, right? So nothing's been allocated to this order. If we look at this item, we can see that there isn't anything on hand. We don't have anything that can be shipped. Or we could have nothing available, right? But nothing's being allocated to this order. So we could see, yeah, we do have quantity available here is 0. We have nothing available for this particular order. So because we don't have anything allocated here, we can, which Britt, I believe, has mentioned before, from this sales order, we can create a purchase order directly for this sales order. In order to do that, I'm going to click on to edit the lines, and I'm going to use this field here, this purchasing type. I'm going to say I'm not going to pull from inventory. Inventory means we're pulling from our existing inventory. I'm not going to do that. I'm going to create a special order. So this is, I'm going to create a purchase order directly for this particular order, for this sales order. So we consider that a special order. You also do have an option to select dropship, which we could then create a purchase order to a vendor and ask them to ship it directly to our customer. But here I'm going to change this to special order, and then I'm going to save the order. And then I have an option here to insert a requisition. There are a few ways that you can create purchase orders. This is one of the ways. Right from the sales order, I can click on insert requisition, and this goes through, looks at the lines, and it will populate a line here. This is the item, the full quantity. The replenishment system we have here can be either a work order or a purchase. I don't want to make this item, so for this particular situation, I want to select that it's a purchase. If it's always a purchase item, it'll default to purchase. And here I have a vendor that's my default vendor. I can change this if I'd like to. I have fields here where I can enter the order date and the due date. That's going to transfer over to the purchase order. So from here, I just have one item here. I can have multiple lines here. If you have multiple orders on the sales order, it would just list them all out. And then from here, I can click on create order. And this is going to go through and it's going to create a purchase order. It says you successfully created 1 purchase order and 0 work orders, because you could create work orders from here as well. But I decided I wanted to purchase this order or purchase this item. All right, so now I'm going to go back to the requisition. This just brings me back to the requisition. I can see here what item and then that the replenishment is purchased. And then I'm going to go over, let me just open another section and go to my purchase orders. And here I can have this purchase order was just created, right, for today. The document status is open. So I can look at this purchase order, and here's the item that I purchased and a quantity of 5. So now this is a standard purchase order where you would do the same process as anything else, right? You can print out the document, send it to your vendor. Once the order comes in, you would come here. Now this is linked to the sales order. So because I created it directly from the sales order, there is a link here. I believe I have it showing here. So you can see here on the purchase line, it'll give me the sales order that it's linked to, and vice versa. From the sales side, it'll give me the purchase order that it's linked to as well. So from this purchase order, I'm going to create the receipt. And this item happens to be a lot tracked item. So I'm going to enter the receiving lot here. And then I'm going to post this warehouse receipt. So this is bringing the inventory in. I'm going to post the receipt. Once this receipt happens, because it's linked to the sales order, if I come back to this sales order, where's my sales order number? If I come back to the sales order, you can see as soon as we process that receipt, it comes over to the connected sales order and allocates the goods. So now my allocation status is full. I have an allocated line that automatically happened once you receive that good. So now I can go through and continue with this sales order, ship the goods out because now it's been allocated, generate the invoice, all of that, picking the document, picking the orders and everything. So there's always going to be a link on the line level between the purchase order and the sales order if you do this the special order process. I'm going to move over onto customer receipts, right? Because it just kind of goes in hand with the sales invoices. So that has to do with customer receipts is when when you receive money in. So I'm going to switch to a different app. Let me get it under here. So I have my customer receipts to process all monies coming in. So what I'm going to do is when goods come in, I'm going to create a customer receipt, enter the customer that it's coming in for, document number, it can be ACH, it can be the check number, it can be the wire number, whatever information you have to define the document. And then, I don't know if this is going to work anymore, but I'm going to enter the quantity. And then I'm going to select the bank account. So you can select what bank account the money's coming into. I'm just going to say it's the standard operating account. We have payment method of how the item, the money's coming in, ACH, check, credit card, whatever it may be. Payment type will default to customer receipt, but we do have other options. If you do have a customer prepayment, customer refund, other receipts that come in, you can kind of change that. And that's all. These fields are informational, that you can view the information later. So once I say this is the money that came in, I'm going to save and post this here. And once I post that, you can see here the general ledger. Just going to hit your bank account and your receivable account, just those two GL account numbers. And this right now is an open customer ledger entry. You can see with the remaining amount. So it's just open and outstanding on the customer's account until you apply this receipt to invoices. So if I click on the apply button now, I'm going to see here, these are all of the outstanding invoices that this customer has. And you can see there's a payment discount that's automatically calculated because when we entered, this is the invoice we just entered, we entered the payment term had a payment discount percentage. So it's automatically calculating because it's within the date range, right? It'll give you the discount date and it'll have the amount here. So I can put a check next to this field and you can see here the applied amount and it's going to take the applied discount amount. So this is going to total to close out this invoice. And then I'm going to also, you can see up here, I have an applied balance still left of $400. I'm going to apply it to this invoice as well. So I'm going to close out both of these invoices with this one customer receipt. And I'm also taking into account this payment discount. Now you can, if you want to, you can adjust these numbers here. You can manually override them if you need to. Then one other thing that I want to go over is credit memos, how to enter a credit memo, right? We can enter a return order that would create a credit memo, or if you need to, you can just come to a sales invoice and create an invoice directly from here. So it doesn't have to come from a sales order or a return order. If I just click on new and I enter the same customer in here, there's an option here under credit memo to just put a checkbox next to the credit memo. Now this is being seen as a credit memo instead of a sales invoice. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to add a service item here. I could add just a general ledger account number as well. Here we go. Just a sales credit that I have set up here. You can see here as soon as you enter the item, the quantity is a -1. So that's automatically, and it must be a negative, otherwise you won't be able to post it because you have it defined as a credit memo. And then I'm going to enter the price. So because I have a negative quantity and a positive price, you can see down here, the total is a negative. Here, the total is a negative amount. So I'm going to save this sales invoice and I'm going to post the sales invoice. Now you can see here it's posting as a credit memo, so it's posting the sales credit memo is what it's called. And once I post this, you can see the invoice number, or the number has a different number series. It's held within the same object, but now if I go to my list of sales invoices, you see I have the sales invoice that was created with an SI number, and the credit memo is an SM for the sales memo number. So it's all held within the same sales invoice space and the same sales invoice object. from my sales invoice, as we had seen, to apply this sales invoice, you can keep it open and wait until the customer makes a payment, and then you can apply everything together. Or you can also come here and apply the credit memo directly to an invoice. So if I click on Apply Credit Memo, I see here all the open invoices. And I could just select here, I'm going to partially apply or make a partial payment basically for this invoice. So it's going to reduce the amount that's going to be remaining for that particular invoice by the credit memo amount. And then I could just post the application, and that closes out that invoice, or closes out this credit memo, and it reduces the invoice by this credit memo amount. Now, the next step I want to go through is transfer orders, which we talked about the other day, of transferring inventory from one warehouse to another using an item journal, and the type would be a transfer item journal. And that's very straightforward, right? You move the item from one warehouse to another. There's also a function called a transfer order, which is really more documentation, that you can create this entire order and you create a shipment from one warehouse and it goes into an in-transit warehouse, and then you can create the receipt in another warehouse. So what I've done, I'm just going to go to my warehouses really quick so you can see we have 3 warehouses: a main warehouse, this Trenton warehouse, and then we also have an in-transit warehouse, which this really, it actually shouldn't have any address. It doesn't need any address, but this field here is checked as used as in transit. So the sole purpose of this warehouse is to utilize the transfer order. So when the transfer order is created and goods are shipped out of one warehouse, it goes into this in-transit warehouse. And then when the goods arrive at the other warehouse, it's received in and taken out of this in-transit warehouse. So if I come in here and I'm going to click on transfer order, I'm just going to create a new transfer order. I'm going to tell it where the goods are coming from, where they're going to, and what the in-transit warehouse is. Because we could have multiple in-transit warehouses, but we only have one. So these are the 3 warehouses that are going to be used for this entire process. And I'm going to add lines here. So I'm going to enter in what items I'm going to be transferring, the unit of measure that I'm going to be moving the items, and the quantity. You can have multiple items here as long as they're all going to the same place. But I'm just going to use this one item right now. So I'm going to click on Save. And then I have a transfer order document that can be printed here. And it's just kind of saying what item is going from where and to where, and the quantities. And as soon as I created this transfer order, you'll notice that there's item allocations on this transfer order as well. So it's automatically been allocated because there's a quantity on hand for this item. From the main warehouse, it's been allocated to this transfer order. So now this also kind of is another holding, so you can see the quantity on hand, but this is no longer available because it's allocated to this particular transfer order. All right, so it's fully allocated. We have our transfer orders open here. Once we're ready to ship the goods out, I'm going to click on Create Shipment. And this is going to create a standard warehouse shipment that you're used to seeing, right? I'm going to enter, no, I'm not going to enter the lot number because we have to pick it. I'm going to this is a regular warehouse shipment. I'm going to create a pick ticket from here. And this is going to do the movement of inventory from one bin to another, right? It's going to pull it from my E204 bin and bring it into this pick bin. That's just my shipping bin. So I'm going to post this pick ticket. And then if I go back to this warehouse shipment, so now the goods have moved. If I go back to this warehouse shipment, I have my lot number assigned. That's green. That's good. I have my inventories now in the correct bin that I can ship out of. And I'm going to post this warehouse shipment. All right. So now you can see what's happened in this warehouse shipment. I'm going to look at, from the warehouse shipment. I have a couple item ledger entries that are being created. You can see the document type is transfer, and it's taking out the quantity of 4 from the main warehouse and increasing quantity of 4 into the in-transit warehouse. It's always going to pull the same cost, right? Whatever the cost is, it's going to pull the cost. But this is what, so now I've actually created item ledger entries, and now the item's just sitting in this in-transit warehouse. Now, since this has been posted, I'm going to go back to my transfer order, and you can see here the document status has changed to all shipped. So all of these items have now shipped. So now the inventory is sitting in the in-transit warehouse, waiting to be received into the other warehouse, the Trenton warehouse. Once those goods come in, the warehouse staff in Trenton will come to this transfer order and create a receipt from here. So now we're going to create a standard warehouse receipt, just like you do from a purchase order. And we're going to receive these goods in. See, the lot number is already defined because, we can't change that. And we can post the warehouse receipt. Posting the warehouse receipt will move the inventory from the in-transit warehouse. And now the inventory is going to be sitting in this Trenton warehouse. I take a look at this. It's going to take it out of in-transit and move it into this Trenton warehouse. So again, the document type is transfer. So that's a way that you can see what actually the reason the transaction occurred. And again, same cost is coming over. We're not adjusting the cost at all. So this is, and as you're going through all of these steps, the standard warehouse shipment, the warehouse receipt, all of the same documentation applies, right? So you're still able to see when you ship the goods out, you can create a packing slip. And so you still have all of the same documentation. We still have the put away function here that you can put your inventory away into the correct bins, right? Because it comes in into the receiving bin. So once I post that receipt, if I go back to the transfer order, it says here, everything's been received, right? We've received everything in. So now this transfer order is complete, right? Everything's been received. So now we can always look at this transfer order. Oh, yeah, this document number has changed too. So now that we know that the goods have been received in and this transfer order has been complete. You can do partial shipments and partial receipts on transfer orders if it's warranted. That's an option that the company can have. But of course, whatever you ship out, you must receive the same in. When you receive the goods from a transfer order, you can't change the quantities at all.